I just don't want to see a generation go up to be frail. And like you say, there is a cost and a benefit. I don't want the resilience of our next generation to be the cost.
Klaudia,
of this.
we're now 5 or 6 generations into this, okay? And we've been doing this for 5 or 6 generations. And we see that it's failing. We see the cost of this illness is totally unmanageable. We can't afford it. And we're seeing, I mean, the number of kidney dialysis businesses I see along the side of the road just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what we're talking about. So anything that we can do to interfere with what's been happening for the last 50, 60, 70 years, we have to enter it. Again, I think a lot of it goes back to the rise of processed food. We're processing the key nutrients out of our food, makes it convenient.
I have a quick favor to ask before we start. I'm not even asking 30 seconds of your time. If you have been enjoying the 90% Healthy podcast, which truly appreciate if you hit subscribe, it genuinely helps us grow and reach more people and keep bringing you thoughtful conversations about health that actually moves the needle without losing your mind. We're really, really grateful that you're here and continue to be. Now let's jump in the episode.
Welcome back to the 90% Healthy podcast. Don, how you doing?
I am good. It's July 1st. We're recording this on July 1st. I'm in Ohio, and I'm pretty damn sure it's as hot in Ohio today as it is in Naples, Florida. I am sweating bullets when I'm out working, so not a place that I am loving right now.
Well, I feel your pain. So
Yeah, every day, don't you?
Yep, majority of the summer, entire summer. So, but today we're going to talk about GLP-1s and what is the latest and the greatest of this incredible tool that's helping people lose so much weight. But there are questions that we need to tackle.
And not just weight loss. This is the important part,
Yes.
that GLP-1s, there are pleiotropic benefits to the use of this drug that are reaching across populations. And I think the thing that got us to this point, you know, this weekend, Klaudia, I was working up at a local, it was a music festival, and I was driving the bands around. We had the Kentucky Headhunters, and we had Sons of Legion. I don't know if you follow either of them.
Nope.
Good kind of Nashville rock and roll. But the music festival was not very well attended. So a lot of downtime. And I was over sitting with this family, the Brown family. They have a Scottish Highlander beef cattle operation up in Utica, Ohio. And I was sitting with them, and we were just talking, you know, I'm an old farm kid, and we were talking about farming and all the different stuff. And the conversation turned to longevity, it turned to performance. And then all of a sudden they said, well, what do you think about GLP-1s? And I said, I think GLP-1s are arguably one of the most important developments in technology. I think GLP-1s are going to be more important to the human race than AI is. Okay, that's how important I think it is. I think there are lots of effects, but her response back to me was interesting. And I thought this is something to talk about today but I understand it eats muscle, is what she said. And I said, well, I said, you have to be careful about protein intake and doing strength training, because you will lose lean mass when you're losing weight. But this belief that it was eating muscle she was seeing that as a negative, as a reason not to use it. So I think what we do today is kind of dig into what would lead to that perception, and how do we manage it? Is it true? It doesn't eat muscle. That's not true. But you can lose a lot of lean mass, and depending on how you measure lean mass, I noticed on Peter Attia's podcast this week, he's talking about it too, talking about the troubles with GLP-1s and how you measure body fat and body fat levels and how that can influence the outcome of the particular studies.
Yeah, I want to hear more about that. But also, yes, from what I have read, it's sometimes can be as much as 1/4 of weight loss that is lean mass if somebody is not careful in eating enough
that's what
protein and
happens
strength
with
training.
weight loss.
Yeah.
Klaudia, if you
yes, I mean,
if you have bariatric surgery, if you do an extensive fasting protocol and you try to do it strictly with energy balance, you're going to have, you could have up to a 1-to-1 loss of lean mass and body and fat mass. Okay.
Yes.
It's just,
And I think it's
that's what happens.
important that you mentioned that, because I think we need to stop saying GLP-1s cause you to lose muscle mass. It's you not eating that is causing you to lose muscle mass. So it doesn't matter, like you mentioned, whether you're not eating because you're fasting, you're not eating because you're not hungry, you're just on a weight loss diet. If you are not prioritizing protein and strength training, you are going to lose a portion of that weight as lean mass. End of story. So it's just how it works. It's not because of the GLP-1s, it's because of the lack of calories and the
You
movement.
cannot lose weight. Okay. You can't lose weight without losing both fat and lean mass. Okay. Period. Okay. It goes hand in hand. When you are catabolic, your body is going to catabolize both energy stores and, to a certain degree, protein stores. That's just the way it works. Now, it's not like we have this perfect pathway to our ideal weight. It's a process that we go through. And that's what's important to look. And the other conversation I had with this gal was that it's not like you had a great diet before you started using the GLP-1s.
Exactly.
We were
Yeah.
talking about what the diet was. I said, this is what goes into it. Now, I've said this on the podcast. I believe this wholeheartedly, that weight gain and weight loss are not energy balance equation effects. It's not just because you consume more calories than you burn, or vice versa with weight loss. Weight gain is a hormone issue. It's an issue of, this is the reason GLP-1s are working so much better than exercise did. And listen, you're talking to a guy that learned the energy, 3,500 calories and a pound of fat. You create a negative environment. That negative environment leads to fat loss. Baloney. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. I mean, that may be the thermogenic equation, but it doesn't work. We've been messing with this for 50 freaking years. It wasn't until we started to address the hormone issue, the hormone of the GLP-1, the glucagon-like protein, which is a hormone. It's not until we started to really deal with that we started to see the real authentic health benefits of weight loss and seeing people do it. But so to go back to where I was, is that, yeah, they admitted they were on a shitty diet before they decided to do the GLP-1s. And I said, here's your challenge. You've now, when you take the GLP-1s, know that there's going to be catabolism. There's going to be the breakdown of metabolic tissue because of this, mainly because, not just because you're consuming less, but it's also modifying. Shoot, Klaudia, I've been spending a bunch of time reading about GLP-1's effect on mTOR, mTOR in the liver, mTOR in the cells, mTOR in the brain. There is a very complex interaction that's taken place. And for our audience, mTOR is a small protein that's in your cell that basically tells your cell to do cell things. So that when there's energy available, and the cell recognizes that because there's insulin available to carry sugars in, and there's IGF available because proteins are on board, the mTOR says, oh, let's go do cell things. And they start making proteins. Well, it's that inhibition or stimulation of mTOR that takes place that gives you a rather complex response. So it's not a really simple, turn the key, open the door kind of relationship. It is multidimensional. But bottom line is, your body's muscular system, your red tissue, is there for more than just manipulation of yourself and your environment. It serves as a storing house of amino acids. Amino acids do everything in here. They make enzymes, they do transmitters, amino acids, and we store them in our red tissue. And when we need them, if they're not coming dietarily, the body will go to the red tissue and get it. So that's the reason that we'll see the breakdown of the muscle tissue, particularly with diets or gastric bypass or any of these weight loss surgeries. But if you want to prevent it, there's two parts to it. You've got to have high levels of quality protein, number one. And two, you've got to stimulate muscle growth. And we typically do that with strength training. Those are two key elements that you've got to make sure and have in place.
And it's interesting you mentioned mTOR because mTOR has been part of longevity conversations for years as well. Because when you inhibit mTOR, you tell the cell not to grow, you tell that environment not to do more,
Don't
but
do
do
cell things. Yep.
less. Yes,
Yep.
which gives space to also autophagy, which you and I have
Right.
talked about. So you can start to tap into those recovery elements of the cellular environment and regenerate and rebuild and get rid of stuff that isn't working anymore. So I think because of the nature of lower consumption, hence, I think all of these that have been very popular in the longevity conversations because of fasting are now starting to show up in these conversations with GLP-1s.
Sure.
Because similar mechanisms occur with the decreasing the mTOR. And yes, there were conversations in fastings. If you're doing too much fasting, you're going to lose lean mass. So it's starting to be almost this one conversation. Well, GLP-1s, I'm sure there will find stuff and studies around. Maybe it will help people live longer, which again is going to be like, duh, well, your insulin sensitivity has gone up. You're dropping the weight. Your cardiometabolic health is improving. Of course, you're going to live longer and have a better health span.
Yeah, that's funny. And I've done a talk on this. There's a talk up on my YouTube page where I talk about biometrics, biomarkers, and biotech. And it's in longevity, and part of longevity is what longevity is the study of what kills you. Okay. And if you want to live longer, you got to figure out what's going to kill you. If you live next to an interstate highway and you have to walk across an interstate highway every day to go to work or go to your kitchen, you live in a Frogger universe, and your issues isn't with mTOR. Your issues with a Mack truck that's coming down the interstate every day that you have to dodge. Okay, so I realize that's a far extreme kind of example, but we got to figure out what's going to kill us, and what we know is that once we make it through middle age, the thing that's going to kill us as we get into our third, cardiovascular disease, inflammation related disease. When we take a look at suppressed immune system response, things like these are all things that are going to probably take your life. If you can get through your 70s and 80s, the thing that's probably going to take you out is a fall. You're going to fall, you're going to bust a bone, you're going to throw a clot, and so with all of these things, the stronger you are, the more muscle mass you're carrying, the better off you can do, the better off you're prepared to deal from Frogger all the way through getting through, our third, all the way into our later years. So this all goes hand in hand. So figuring out what's going to kill you. But part of the challenge is that if before you started your GLP-1, if you were on a shitty high volume diet, going to a shitty low volume diet still has problems. Okay. So you have to pay attention to that as you work your way through. The GLP-1's nice. I mean, it sure suppresses appetite. And there's a lot of other benefits that come from it. But at some point in time, you got to say, okay, is what I'm sticking in my head, it's our rocks in the jar. We've talked about this. Exercise is the hack to movement. Nutrient dense food is the second rock in the jar. And the better job you can do of getting nutrient-dense food in your pie hole, the better off you'll be. Yeah. How's that for a clip? Get nutrient-dense food in your pie hole.
I love that. If you go from eating a lot of shitty food to eating not a lot of shitty food, that's still shitty food.
It's still shitty food. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
It's still not going to nutriently fill your body with
right.
With the proper
you've got to have those nutrients.
Yeah, I'm hoping that people will pay attention to conversations like this one because yes, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool and it's consistently evolving. I mean, how many has come out since the first GLP-1s and they are becoming more effective every single time with the increase in how much average body weight is lost in a certain amount of period and how much it helps with different aspects of your health. But as a lot of things in the US are used for shortcuts and crutches, I just really hope people will learn the lesson to not use these as a shortcut or a crutch long term, but change behavior. It's just going to be the hard part.
No doubt about that. I'll tell you, this is something I've been watching for several years now. I don't know when GLP-1s were first released, but we've been on our journey in our nomadic journey, and I remember working with someone at a campsite several years ago. Gal's checking us in, and we're talking, what do you do? Da da da. And she says, "Oh yeah, I just started using GLP-1s, and I've lost 50 pounds or something like that." And I'm like, "Man, that's great." I said, "Are you lifting? Are you doing exercise?" She says, "No, no, I'm losing weight with just the GLP-1s. It's working great." And there's obviously a disconnect there. And that's the challenge. Now, whether her physician doesn't want to take the time to emphasize the importance of having the exercise, this is the age-old question, Claudia, that I've struggled with, that the exercise industry has struggled with. How do we get people to recognize the benefit that comes from strength training, cardiovascular conditioning, those two things primarily, and making a commitment to integrate it into their life? There's probably 75% of the population that just doesn't exercise enough, or maybe at all. I think the term could be at
Yeah.
all. So, that's part of the real challenge.
I mean, even from data, I think from Eli Lilly, that it's projected that by 2030, there will be over 100 million people globally on GLP-1s. But what Lilly's CEO said is that it's fewer than 1 in 10 people who could benefit from GLP-1s are currently on one. But to your point on that exercise, I read an article about a study that was recently published through, like, Fitbit did a research on how much exercise habits changed within individuals who tracked or who stated that they were on GLP-1s, and exercise habits decreased. There were less step counts, there were less time spent in moderate to vigorous activity. And of course, these numbers are not drastically dropping from what they saw. It was like from 28 minutes, it went down to 22 minutes. So it's not a lot, but it's just a trajectory to pay attention to and be like, okay, are we using this again as something that helps us be healthier? Are we using this as something that will, in conjunction, will be a tool in the toolbox that will make me live healthier for a long time? Because you can't be on,
Listen,
can you be on this forever? No.
we don't know. We don't know why you can't.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we don't know why you can't, and I think it makes sense that it's got to be moderated and modulated,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know that you can't. And this is where I go back to, Claudia. You've heard me talk about the fact that so many of our health challenges right now are a function of the maladaptation from our genetics to our environment.
Uh-huh.
We live in environments that we did not adapt to, and that we don't have to adapt to, that our genetics are about changing, about adapting to. And frankly, we don't have to do it enough. So this is part of the challenge. And when we look at why does someone go to the gym? Well, the average female that walks into a gym has tried 8 different weight loss programs and failed in her mind before she walks in the door of the gym for the first time. So it's about weight loss. And when you talk to people that are going to the gym, the numbers are well beyond 75%. Why are you
Yeah.
here? I want to lose weight.
I
This
wish.
is
So
this is
I
the
have to, can I,
challenge.
let me cut in there.
Yeah.
I wish it was, I want to change my body composition.
Well, no, the thing I want to get to is that I want to live to see my grandkids
Yeah.
graduate. I want to this is when I was talking to this gal at the concert, I said, listen, longevity is about 2 things. I said, number 1 is figuring out what's going to kill you. And it's number 2 is about how much money do you want to spend to stay alive in the last decade of your life? What do you want the last decade of your life to look like?
Yeah.
And if you want that last decade to be in a hospital, or to be hooked to a respirator, or to be hooked to a bottle of oxygen, or to be hooked to a bag of some kind, keep doing what you're doing. If you want that last decade to be vigorous, I've talked about this on the podcast, I want to be that crazy wrestler that shows up in a wrestling room when I'm 80 or 90 years old, and I slowly keep working my way towards that. I start my 65th lap of the sun next week, and it's like, first of all, how in the hell did I get this old like this? I said, I'm the age of old people back when I was paying attention to it.
You live
But
life differently than an old person, so you're not old.
but Claudia, I'm only 15 years away from 80.
Well, that's just math, but
That's just math. You're right. And this is the funny part about it, but I do know what I want to do. I do know that who I want to be. I do know what I want my last days on earth to look like. Because I know, listen, biology's undefeated. We're all going to move on. Listen, have you ever seen the movie Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt? When he, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it because you'll appreciate Brad Pitt. But he's killed by a bear, and the narrator of this movie says, and he died a good death. The bear got him.
Yeah.
And so, these are the two things you got to pay attention to, is that number one, what's going to kill you? Pay attention to it, constantly work on it. Number two, what do you want that last decade? What do you want that last year to look like?
Yeah.
I know what I want mine to look like. This is what keeps me motivated and keeps me going.
Care to share?
Oh yeah. Listen, I've said it before. You know what? If my last day on earth, I'm hiking the edge of the Grand Canyon and I slip and I get to enjoy the ride down, that to me, that would be dying a good death.
That is terrifying.
No, it'd be a great ride. I mean, just think about it and just be at peace, be able to settle out and be at peace and know that I've done all the things that I can do. It's funny. I heard something the other day. I'm trying to remember where it was. They're talking about what would happen. What's it going to be? What will happen after you die? And I think it was Keanu Reeves said, I'm not exactly sure, but I know there will be some people that are very sad. And I think that's what you want to do. When I finally leave this earth, I hope someone's not happy about it. I hope I hope they sit back and say, man, he had a good run. Good for him. I know that's the way it was when my mother passed. My mother passed going on 5 years ago, and she did hospice in our home. And my mom was sharp right through the end. She wound up having stage 4 cancer and just really deteriorated fast in the last half a year that she was alive. But my mom did really good, and she had a good run. She passed away at 85, and that's only 20 years away from me.
That's a long time. So don't
20 years ago,
okay.
I was 45.
There's going to be so much gene editing by the time.
Well, I'm just, they call it, longevity escape velocity. I'm not, listen, again, if I happen to step in front of a bus tomorrow, I hope that I go back to my personal mission, helping individuals understand what change is necessary to alleviate suffering and contribute to the betterment of well people. That's what I wake up and do. That's what I think about. That's what I do. That's who I am. And I hope people think, he had a really good run.
Very cool. Well, okay, so let's gear back to life.
Okay.
Living.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to talk about some things that are being researched to counteract that muscle wasting that happens during the time of being on the GLP-1. And I'm seeing the rise of conversations around compound substances that help inhibit what's called myostatin, which are initially part of that lean mass loss role. So you would be able to have muscle hypertrophy and put on lean mass despite being on a GLP-1 and despite perhaps even having crazy strength training routines. I mean, I'm hoping this will, again, not go the other, route where like, oh, take this, that's going to help you lose weight, and take this, that's going to help you keep lean muscle, and you'll be fine. Just sit on the couch. It'll be great. Like, I really hope that is not going to happen.
Well, this is the interesting thing, because we were talking about autophagy a little bit, that when we fast and we extend our fast, our cells go into a state of cleaning, self-eating. That's what autophagy means in Latin, self-eating. And that particular process is been shown to be very important in improved longevity. If you want to live long, you've got to get the crap cleaned out of those cells. You do that with fasting. So the question that keeps coming up is, should I exercise when I'm fasting? Well, this is one of the nice things about it, because what we're doing is we're lowering mTOR in the cell that's being triggered by nutritional by IGFs and insulin. So we're definitely lowering that. But one of the other triggers of mTOR is muscle tension. That when we exercise, we stimulate mTOR production of muscle protein in cells from the tension created from the exercise. So this is why fasted exercise can be such a huge benefit. And when you look at the research, what you see is that even with regular strength training and high protein intake, can can it mitigates the protein loss. Okay. And again, you get to where you're going and you do it well, but there's going to be you just can't liposuction all the fat out of internal cellular components. So, this is part of the challenge. You can dramatically reduce the amount of muscle wasting that happens with GLP-1 consumptions, with exercise and strength training. And when I say strength training, I mean, you know, my Laura loves Pilates. That's her exercise of choice. That's strength training. Okay. That shit's hard. Okay. I don't do it. I mean, it's just too hard. But but yeah, being engaged in that stimulus of stimulating the muscle fibers to do work, you're going to get an mTOR reaction. You're going to get protein synthesis. And if you have sufficient oral protein intake, you're not going to be using your existing muscle mass for your protein needs and your amino acid needs. It's going to be there for you. So that's why it's so important. The three things with GLP-1s: exercise, number 2, protein intake, number 3, fiber. Because
I
there
want to
is
give some actionable items here before we go, because it was so well said, and you got it to this point, and I don't want us to move on before doing the whole 1%. Like, what's the 1% takeaway here for our audience? How, like, what does it mean that I need to exercise? What does it mean that I need protein? What does it mean that I need fiber? What's the minimum effective dose per se?
Sure.
And I know with exercise always do more, but like.
You want to? Well, let's tell you what. Let's go back to our notes a little bit. Let's finish up with that. We're only about halfway through, but I want to emphasize. I believe the GLP-1 class of medications are really important. And I think if you're thinking about it and your doctor suggests it, I can't think of a medication that has a lower risk profile, particularly risk to benefit profile, than GLP-1s. Okay. There's just no two ways about it. They really work well. And that's what the data is showing pretty well. And they're going crazy right now. If you don't, one of the hesitations up until now is you kind of had to give yourself a shot. Well, that's changing now too. Lily's now got a pill.
And there's something else is looking at a patch too.
I saw a patch, transdermal patch pop up the other day. Again, these are peptides. Peptides will cross the skin in a patch like that. So they can do that. We're seeing the evolution from semaglutide to tirzepatide to retatrutide. We're seeing an improvement in the number of receptors that these particular drugs hit. So we're seeing them improve. It's a really interesting time to be alive. And for the first time, I don't think there's anything more important, Klaudia, for someone considering this than is to break the mindset of weight loss. Okay. The number one thing to start to do is get away from that. Let's start to look at purpose. I don't think there's anything more important. I realize life can be crazy. Trust me, I'm in the middle of a crazy part of my life right now. And there's a lot of times, I'm just trying to stay alive day to day. I'm not, I get to sit here and have a conversation with you, and we can dream about what it's going to be like, 15 years from now, when we do this podcast and I'm 80 and you're still 35.
Oh my God, I'll be like 50.
You'll still be 35.
Yes.
And, but as we take a look at this, what's so critical is that we constantly go back and look at this concept of purpose. I was listening to a podcast earlier today when I was working, and they were talking about a flow state and resilience and curiosity. What are
I
three
love those
really,
words.
aren't they awesome?
Yeah.
I was looking at this and I want to write
My
a
life.
newsletter. I'll do a newsletter on this eventually, but I was listening to that and I think this is what we have to look forward to is that, but it starts with purpose. It
Yeah.
starts with taking a step back and saying, who do I want to become? What do I want to do? And I'll remind you, no one takes a picture of the scale and hangs it on the wall. No one does. If you want to reward yourself with an outfit, great. I'm all about that. Okay. But at the same time, I want you to think down the road. I want you to think about who you want to be in 15 years. And if that person is, if you're not thinking about it, then there's a really good chance it's going to be medically controlled environment. Okay.
Yeah.
When you set the purpose, you have agency, you're in control, it's your guidance at that point, and that begins with purpose. Okay. That goes in the rocks in the jar, the 5 rocks in the jar that we've talked about. Movement, you have to move. Our body requires movement. You hack it with exercise. Nutrient dense food, the more nutrient dense food you can get in, the better. If you're not getting enough dense nutrients, then you use supplements. Okay, that's sleep. You have to get good sleep. Can't hack sleep, but you can hack the sleep environment. Number 4 is light, getting out, getting good sunlight into your eyes first thing in the morning, being careful with high noon sunlight and UVs, but also getting that circadian alignment. And the 5th rock, as we've talked about in the past, is community. This was the fun part about this last weekend. I met a bunch of new people. I met these guys, the Kentucky Headhunters. These guys have been playing music together for 50 years. They won a Grammy in 1996. What a great group of guys. And so we spent the day, and then the next day we worked with a company called Sons of Legion. What a talented bunch of artists. I mean, it was crazy, but just good guys. One of the cool things, so the Sons of Legion, Klaudia, they're younger, obviously, much younger than I am. But as we're getting ready, I watched them pull 2 wrestling mat sections out of their buses, and they go into the building next to where we were. So they're in there rolling jujitsu together, teaching each other jujitsu. Here's these rock and roll artists doing jujitsu during the day. That's their movement fix. They're doing this. That's their community. And we got into a conversation about wrestling and so forth. So it was just, I built my network a little bit. One of them came back and followed me on Instagram, and we had a funny little conversation about that. But I built my community that day. We're building our community now, taking the step to get out there, whether it's at a church or a community center or a concert or something going on, or at the 4th of July fireworks coming up here in a few days. Build that community so that so it refreshes and reinforces the purpose.
Yeah, those are key elements of so many things. And I couldn't yes, 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 and yes. So
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. But I want to continue on with something that I read, and we talk about wearables all the time. And now Aura has announced a collaboration with Lilly Direct, which is Eli Lilly's digital health and pharmacy platform. So apparently they're going to be sending a complimentary Aura ring sizing kit to all the Lilly Direct customers. Now, I don't know what's going to happen after that. Are they getting a discount if you want to get an Aura ring? What's going to happen? Or you're just legitimately getting an Aura ring. So it was a little bit of a vague part
Brilliant
of this,
marketing.
but,
Brilliant marketing.
But it's interesting because I know that you mentioned that you're tracking your HRV all the time. And it's just interesting to see how individuals, and maybe I know there's not going to be much of a data sharing, but who knows? Aura might start doing a study on how data changes with individuals who are tagging GLP-1 in the app and see how
I don't know how they don't do that.
Yeah.
That has to come there. Number
It
one.
has to.
Number 2 is it's about agency. Okay. There's so many people out there. God, go to a Walmart sometime and look at the number of people walking into Walmart and the amount of metabolic disease
It's terrible.
that
Or
goes in and out.
Disneyland.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And a third of them have a cigarette in their mouth too.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, we have plenty of metabolic disease in this country, and we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
But if someone has had the awareness to go to their doctor and say, hey, I want to do something about this, the doctor gives them the script for the Ozempic. They go ahead, and whether it's injectable or the pill or whatever, they start to do this. And oh, by the way, I've got I can now start to measure my sleep and set HRV aside. Just start paying attention to your sleep metrics. Just start paying attention to some of these metrics that wearables provide. You develop agency. You develop a sense of control over what you do. And remember, prior to this, most people depended on a visit to their doctor 1 to 4 times a year in order to get the directions and the corrections. And frankly, it didn't work.
No.
Now we have the ability to do this on a daily basis. And with the emergence of some of this wearable tech and the systems that are going to run behind it, I'm very optimistic about the future.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to get out of here overnight either. I mean,
No.
the metabolic issues in this country have been worsening since the 1970s, 80s. So it's going to be at least 2050 by the time we may be able to see some changes in the metabolic issues in this country, where it's not 85% of people having some type of a
I
metabolic.
think it's going to come faster than that. I
We'll
really
see.
do. I really think, and you know what's going to what's going to drive it is the
GLP-1s.
cost of the medication.
And that's
Okay,
it. Yeah.
so as what we know is that this medication definitely has price flexibility built into it. We know that when you cut the price in half, the number of people that buy it at least double, triple, or quadruple. Okay,
Yeah.
so for the drug company, the profits are there.
Yeah.
So they continue to drop the price. I believe our government should be getting behind this. I think this would be a wonderful thing to subsidize to populations that are struggling, because again, whether you're going to the dollar store or Walmart or something like that, there's a difference in the people that shop at Whole Foods and the people that shop at Walmart. And it's usually financially related. That's one of the big determining factors. I shop at both places. And this is the important part. But I think the fact that Aura stepped into this space is brilliant. We're both fans of Aura Ring. I have been. I mean, I've had one since Gen 1. And it's funny because I'm like, do I want to change my device? Do I want to do this? I'm like, nah, my data. I wear a polar heart rate monitor and I wear an Aura Ring. The reason I wear a polar heart rate monitor, I have nearly 30 years of heart rate data stored in polar systems. So that's where my data's at. Okay. So I'm not going to Garmin. I'm not going somewhere else. I'm staying there. Even if I go to someone else's device, I still keep my polar device.
Yeah.
And I keep my Aura Ring. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's about building agency in individuals. That you're going to have a group of people. This is that if you think about the technology adoption cycle, it looks like a bell curve, and you've got these early adopters and so forth. But then you've got this thing called the chasm that you have to get across to get into the early majority. This is what we're dealing with right now. We're in the chasm. We're at the chasm, and we're starting to see programs, again, lower the costs, make it more available to people. There's going to be some people that never touch it. There's going to be someone that's just like, screw it, I'm not doing it. And, that's just the way life works. But we have the ability to affect the lives of many, many people.
No, I couldn't agree more. And since we're talking a little bit about the future, I wanted to bring up a story that I saw in the Wall Street Journal last week that mentioned how some kids as young as 6 are being prescribed GLP-1s. And we all know that GLP-1s are approved for 12 years and older. But we also know that there's a large percentage, and I think it's 1 in 4 children nowadays who have obesity. So it's really not great. And if we can't get them to lose weight through exercise, then doctors are like, let's try this. But I have questions about this. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think the doctors went to school, and I believe they have the best interest of their patients in mind.
I mean, I would
That's what I
hope
believe.
so.
Number 2, I don't listen. I know there's a lot of bitching and moaning online and so forth about the motivations of certain people, but I generally believe the people that work in our healthcare system wake up and go to work every day with trying to help other people. I think that's why they go into this field. I think in government, I think most people that work in government wake up and go to work because they want to help people. I think I believe that, and I continue to believe that. And
Yeah.
listen,
And
there's scoundrels in all phases of life, but I know what we were doing wasn't working.
yeah.
I do know that you can't take a 6-year-old and diet them to healthy metabolic disease. It does not work. And we don't know what the trauma was. We don't know what the genetic parts are. We don't know what the environment is. And anytime that you do a drug or you do a supplement, okay, there's a cost benefit analysis. What is the benefit available, but what is the risk? Risk, benefit, cost benefit, whatever you want to call it. And I don't think it takes. Listen, I would be very supportive of the physician that says, listen, I want to figure out how to get you on a pathway to healthy metabolic living as early as I can. I would be supportive of that. What we're seeing with GLP-1s is we're not seeing. I'll tell you a funny story. Back when I first started in the exercise industry, this is 45 years ago, there was this don't do sit-ups like they do in the army. Everyone was doing these army, it was all these army training things back then. And oh, the sit-ups will hurt your back. Well, I was talking to someone, he says, listen, the army's been doing sit-ups like this for decades, and we're not blowing people's backs out. So that risk isn't there. And they were talking about the risk of exercise centers and so forth. And there's not broken bones and dead bodies all littering the exercise industry. It doesn't work like that. And I've got a feeling GLP-1s are going to be a lot like this too. Yes, there's always a concern. You should always be cognizant. Listen, be as cognizant of that as you are when you take ibuprofen. Okay. I know ibuprofen is interfering with an inflammatory reduction pathway. And I think that could be as difficult to deal with metabolically as a GLP-1 in a 6-year-old. So I think it's important. Let's give the doctors the benefit of the doubt. It's their license on the line.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't forget that. And they have a lot to risk in this. And so I tend to take a step back and say, I want to look at the glass half full.
I'm with you on that. I think there is a place and time to do it, and I just have hopes for an added educational element that is done when this is administered. And I just wish I could say, obviously, I haven't had a lot of experience with the American medical system, knock on wood,
Mhm.
but the education is often lacking in how it is channeled in a way that the patient can truly make sense of it in a way that it's actionable. So
No doubt.
that's where I have questions where, yes, okay, let's help these kids not become obese adults, but
Right.
also are we
Let's help these
teaching
kids be
them?
metabolically healthy,
Yeah,
regardless of what their body comp is. Let's
yeah,
help them. Again, we equate skinny to healthy. That may
yeah,
not be a
that
good
might not be true.
equation.
Yeah.
Okay. My wife, I tell her, I said, if you expected to marry someone with a 6-pack, you lost it. I have a keg. I don't have a 6-pack. So that's just the nature of it, but I can still be metabolically healthy.
hmm And I hope,
So
and I just really wish that this is gonna turn out to be that. And I don't want this to be interfering with children's development, where we know we want them to have lean mass, we want them to have strong bone
sure.
density. Like, I just don't want to see a generation go up to be frail. And like you say, there is a cost and a benefit. I don't want the resilience of our next generation to be the cost of
Klaudia,
this.
we're now 5 or 6 generations into this. Okay. And we've been doing this for 5 or 6 generations.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that it's failing. We see the cost of this illness is totally unmanageable. We
Yeah.
can't afford it. And we're seeing, the number of kidney dialysis businesses I see along the side of the road just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what we're talking about. So anything that we can do to interfere with what's been happening for the last 50, 60, 70 years, we have to enter it. again, I think a lot of it goes back to the rise of processed food. We're
Yes.
processing the key nutrients out of our food,
Yes.
makes it convenient. I struggle with the amount of, you know, we started at the beginning of the podcast talking about how hot it is. I've been working outside in this heat and I'm just sweating bullets. And I don't normally spend a lot of time worrying about hydration. I just don't do it because I don't get dehydrated. Well, I'm paying attention to it today because I'm just losing so much water. Now, we've been told for years that we have everyone walks around with a freaking water bottle now. Okay. It's impossible to go into a crowd and not see, 9/10 of the people carrying a water bottle with them. I'm not sure we have that big of a hydration problem. Okay. But we've been telling people there's a hydration problem. Companies market the fact that there's a hydration problem, and they hope that you're putting more in that bottle besides water, that you're putting some type of a sugar-based electrolyte product that you bought from the local store into that bottle. No, that you don't need that. You don't need sugar in this. Marathon times have not improved dramatically as sport drinks have improved.
Hmm.
Think about that. And we know there's problems with this. So we've got to be able to separate the marketing that looks like health marketing, but is actually something that's promoting the sale of a product using something science-based and building a habit around it. We have to be very careful about that. So,
Yeah. And it's becoming very prominent.
and
So
until we can prescribe strength training, we can recommend it.
yeah.
Okay. But at some point in time, should the 6-year-old be in an exercise program? We got to be really careful there. 6-year-olds should be playing. Okay.
Playing, yeah.
They should be playing. And we have issues that we have to solve those issues too. But along the way, if you've got some kid that's swelling up and the doctor's legitimately worried about metabolic disease and sees this as an opportunity to intervene on this, I'm not against it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not against it. I just have a level of caution in the education side and
Always
the
should have.
yeah. But it's interesting. So I want to give our audience two different types of takeaways, and one to give them one when they are on GLP-1s. And since we have a rise in youngsters getting GLP-1s, also advice to those who have kids who are on GLP-1s. What would you say?
Movement is always better. This has been one of the big changes generationally. My daughter, listen, when I was growing up, first of all, I think one of the problems that's leading to the issues that we have with obesity and lack of movement is central air. Okay. When I was growing up, I lived in a house that did not have central air conditioning. Okay. You didn't want to be in that house during the day. It was too blooming hot. And my mother was like, get out of the house, go do some. We're down playing in the creek. We're up doing, we were going all the time. Okay. Plus, we were on a farm and we had all those responsibilities too. But we don't move enough, and you can't squeeze enough work into a 1-hour session with a personal trainer in order to do that. You've got to play, you've got to move, you've got to get out. So how you do that, there's a lot of good ideas, and I think you try them all, but you need to move more, number one.
Find something you enjoy. Like how your
Yes.
wife found
Yes.
Pilates or Zumba,
Yes.
Like find something you enjoy. It's not going to be the 2-hour strength training or the hour class that Apple has on its app. Like find something you enjoy. And it does take a trial and error. You try, you like it. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe
Yeah,
you like
and
having a
maybe get
trampoline and you do a trampoline exercise.
and maybe get away from the screen.
Yeah, ideally.
Okay,
as much
maybe
as
that's part of
possible.
it. But, I guess if I'm a parent, with Jacqueline as a parent, I guess it's not if I
You
was
are
a
a
parent,
parent.
as a parent, she was well, first of all, part of the gig was she had to be involved in recreational sports from the get-go.
Mhm.
Okay. I think we had her looking through the catalog of recreational sports when she was 4 or 5 years old. We're like,
See?
pick one.
Yeah.
So number one. Number two is, as a family, we always traveled for interesting vacations. We'd go up to Mackinac Island in Michigan, which is this really cool island in the middle of Lake Huron, in between the lower and upper peninsula of Michigan. It's a beautiful place in the summertime. Huge
Mm.
recommendation for me. But there's no cars on the island, horseback
That's
and
nice.
bicycles. Okay, so we'd go up to Mackinac, and we would take our bikes and we would ride laps of the island. It would go take that. So it's always active, always moving. And it's been really fun as Jacqueline has grown into an adult. And when we're out on our nomadic adventures somewhere in some mountain somewhere, she really embraces, I'll tell you what, she hikes my ass in the ground.
Nice.
So we've gotten that, so it's there. So, but think about investing in that child's future, not necessarily in remodeling the kitchen, or, let's get our priorities straight. These kids are not furniture, they are not accessories, they are our responsibilities. And as parents, we have a responsibility to help with this. Okay, so
Yeah.
start there. I think that's where you start. We don't move enough. We don't play enough. When you start taking a look at play and the role of play in the building of team capabilities, communication, enjoyment, flow,
Plays
I was
key.
that podcast I was talking about. They were talking about special operations soldiers, and they were talking about building breath holding capabilities. And I can take a bunch of soldiers to a pool, and I can tell them to go in the water and hold their breath. That's not a lot of fun. But if I take those same soldiers and we go play underwater rugby or underwater hockey, and they've got to come up, get a breath, and go back down, they develop the breath holding skills, but they have fun, they enjoy it. You can't get someone to hold their breath on and off by themselves for 4 hours, but I can get someone to play underwater hockey for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So play is critical.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I think it's a really good 1%. Because I think it starts there, and then you can work your way up to trying different things. Maybe, I enjoyed this.
Yes.
Maybe I'll try something else. Oh, this is more difficult. Maybe I'll try that. So don't do something you absolutely hate, because then
No,
it's not going to be fun.
no, you got to do something you love and turn it into a love. I mean, it's,
Because
you
then you'll
know,
start to love the process, which you always talk about, how important it
absolutely.
is to love the process.
Yes, that you've
Yeah.
got that's critical. And you will sacrifice. This is what my friend Tom Ryan, the head coach at Ohio State, talks about. He says, when you love what you do, you will sacrifice for it. And you'll sacrifice the screen. You'll sacrifice the something else, okay? So but you've got to love it. And that's what's so important. I think we got that done with Jacqueline. I mean, as she's grown into an adult, I've seen that come there. But there were no classes on doing this. We just had to figure it out as we went. But both for Laura and I, that child was our number one priority, period, end of story. So, and still
Mhm.
is today for the most part.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that. Is there anything we didn't talk about that we should about this topic?
Well, it's good news. I think
Hmm.
listen, we've
Yes,
talked about this
it
in
is
the
good
last
news.
two podcasts. Agency. We're starting to see elements that people can develop agency, ownership, the ability to direct their lives. Wearable technology falls into that. You don't want it to become obsessive, but you want to develop agency. GLP-1s can help with this, or this class of drugs can help with this. Claudia, I use them. Okay. So, you know, it
Yeah, I
would
know a
be,
lot of people do. Yeah.
listen,
But you know how to use it right.
I've got a metabolism that really
Yeah.
benefits from it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I do the other things too,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, when you look at the data on improved heart disease, all the
The
pleiotropic benefits that come with it, it's an F
addiction.
yes for me.
Yeah.
I'm using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of upside, like with a lot of the stuff. So I by no means try to come off like somebody who's against it. I just want people to also know the right way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because I
You
know
got to have the other part.
the most people I know taking it like yourself, they are doing it right. They know how to use it as part of a toolbox. Excuse me. So I think it's just important. That's why I love having this conversation, so we can give some of those additional pieces of the toolbox that help
Yep.
make the best benefit from this. And
I wanted to say something, but my cough disrupted me.
That's right.
Also, and I think it still continues to be on my mind that one of the last couple of conversations in the last 2 episodes ago when we had your friend JP Rico on
Mm-hmm.
and his theory of aging, how it goes back to that nervous system regulation and deregulation, how important it is to spend time in that state of parasympathetic over being chronically in that state of fight or flight. So I just want people, if you are spending way too much time pissed at people or just really angry or just in that state of hypervigilance, I highly recommend to listen to that episode because it still continues to be in my mind how important your nervous system balance is for your longevity, health, aging, all of that.
Well, and I brought up a point. I'll tell you, I do notice a drop in my HRV scores when I'm
Yep.
using GLPs. Okay, I notice that. What's that tell me? It's not a lifetime commitment for me.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to use it strategically. I'm going to move the needle for a little bit, eventually get off it, maybe come back, but it's not something that I'm going to do 24/7, 365 for the rest of my life.
And that's why you're a scientist. You ask questions, so you look the pivot.
We try.
Well done. I'm excited for us to talk about some new topics coming up in the next few episodes. So, for those of you listening, stay tuned and be sure to subscribe because it really helps us. Make sure to comment and like and share the love and share this episode with somebody who may be on GLP-1s or is thinking about getting on them because this may be useful information in their decision making and how they can strategize using it as a tool that can really help them become metabolically healthy.
Claudia and I are working for our listeners. Claudia and I are working on trying to create a blog, newsletter, something to go along with what we do. Until we get there, I write about an element as it relates to performance or longevity or HRV. I have joined the ownership team of a company called Mode and Method. It's a product that I developed. It's a company that I developed years ago. I got to come back and join the ownership of it. But I write about this in their blog and their newsletter series. So if this is something that interests you, maybe run over to modemethod.com. There'll be a pop-up if you'd like to get the newsletter. You can go ahead and sign up for it. But I write about this, and we're going to continue to develop this stuff here within 90% Healthy. But just know that that's another place you can go find it. So please like, share, and comment. We'd love to hear comments. We'd love to work on this. If you've got a suggestion, if there's something you're looking for, let us know. Put me to work because there's nothing more that I enjoy than going down a rabbit hole. In fact, I believe the first paragraph of the email that comes out tomorrow from Mode Method is I needed to come up out of one of my rabbit holes. So we were talking about that. That's a place I love to be. I guess maybe I need to get a rabbit image over here behind me because I've got a bear. What do I have? I have a bear and 2 orcas.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but hey, have a great day, Claudia.
Have a great day. See y'all tomorrow. Next week. Bye.